Hello again. With the news that the United States is attacking Venezuela and may be about to invade the country, it is no longer possible to ignore the fact that conflict is now spreading around the world, and that, try as we might, we can no longer ignore the fact that something of great significance is taking place. After the joint Israeli and American attacks on Iran last summer, military action all over the world was increased, with Israel bombing various countries all across the Middle East. At the same time, the Americans have been bombing not only Iran, but also the African countries of Somalia and Nigeria. Now, the United States has begun bombing a South American country. Meanwhile, the Israeli Prime Minister says that his priority now is protecting Christians in the Middle East, by what means he did not say. Iran is in flames, and President Trump has said that he is prepared to take military action again there, something which the Israelis will be keen to take part in as well. I am not commenting on the ethics of all this. That is to say, I am neither criticizing America and Israel, but nor am I praising their actions. I am simply describing in as neutral fashion as possible what is actually happening across the world right now. What it amounts to is that a war has been raging in Europe for years, in Ukraine and Russia, and there have been wars also in Asia, such as the June War between America and Israel and Iran. At Christmas, the fighting spread to Africa, and it's now raging in South America. In other words, wars are being fought now in 4 of the world's continents, and these involve Russia and America directly. A few years ago, this would have been seen as a doomsday scenario, the onset of a world war, but we have become desensitized to such events, and most people now hardly bat an eyelid when they hear that Moscow has been hit by missiles fired from Ukraine, or that America is firing cruise missiles at the heart of Africa. We just shrug and get on with our lives, hoping that it will all die down and go away. I'm very far from convinced that it will die down and go away. Indeed, as far as I can see, it's all getting worse by the day. The world's great powers seem to feel that this is the time for dealing with what they regard as things affecting their welfare and essential interests, and the United Nations has shown itself helpless to intervene. Remember the days when those blue-helmeted peacekeepers patrolled the world's hotspots and tried to maintain the peace? Not seen many of them at work lately, have we? We have unwittingly entered an era when the great powers are determined to act only according to the interests of realpolitik rather than fancy philosophies. The Russians wanted Crimea and half of Ukraine, so they simply took it. Israel didn't like what Iran was up to, and so they bombed it. Yemen got irritated and fired missiles at Israel. America didn't like what they saw in Nigeria and fired missiles at that country. We are in a new period of world history in which countries now feel uninhibited and able to do pretty much as they please. This is all horribly reminiscent of the 1930s, the time when Italy decided it wanted an empire and so invaded Ethiopia. Japan fancied part of China and so launched a war in Manchuria. Hitler wanted the Sudetenland and took it. We all know where this ended the last time round, and the similarities are really stark because just as now, there was actually a world organization, the League of Nations, whose business was to prevent things from spiraling into a world war. The United Nations was founded for the same reason after the Second World War. But just as the League of Nations turned out to be toothless and helpless, so too was the United Nations. The events in Venezuela suggest that this state of affairs is now accelerating rather than diminishing. And with the crisis in Iran also looming and the Israelis offering to protect Christians all over the place, I can see that we're in for a pretty lively year. I haven't even mentioned the many local wars being waged which do not directly involve Russia and America, such as the fighting between Thailand and Cambodia, the Saudi military action against Yemen, the Sudanese war, and so on. Everywhere one looks, it's the same picture. Unless all these nations, including Russia, China, and America, take a deep breath and stop to think what they are about, a world war is pretty much inevitable.